Ravenshollow was a town on the edge of everything. To the east stretched miles of farmland, dotted with barns and lazy rivers, but to the west a vast forest loomed. The Blackwood, they called it. The forest was ancient, filled with twisted trees and hidden paths. The people of Ravenshollow always spoke of it in hushed tones. Legends whispered through the generations, tales of strange creatures and ancient magic. No one dared to venture too deep. Ethan had always lived on the edge of the Blackwood. He knew the stories, the warnings whispered by the firelight. Yet he felt strangely drawn to the forest. He would often walk along its fringes, listening to the rustling leaves and watching the sunlight filter through the canopy. The forest felt alive, a presence both daunting and alluring. Today, however, something felt different. The air hummed with an unknown energy, pulling him deeper. The afternoon sun cast long shadows as Ethan walked deeper into the Blackwood than he had ever ventured before. The air was thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. He could hear the distant cry of a hawk circling high above the canopy. He felt a thrill of excitement, a sense of stepping into the unknown. He brushed aside a low-hanging branch and stopped dead in his tracks. Standing in the middle of the path was a lion. It was massive, with a tawny mane that seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight. Its amber eyes, filled with an ancient wisdom, fixed on Ethan. Fear, cold and sharp, shot through him. He wanted to turn and run, but found himself frozen in place. Then he noticed something even more astonishing. The lion was gently carrying a child in its mouth, a small boy, no older than 5, limp and pale, his eyes closed. Ethan stood paralyzed, caught between the instinct to flee and the need to help the child. The lion took a step closer, its gaze unwavering. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. He could feel the heat radiating from the creature's massive body. The lion lowered its head slightly, the boy still held gently in its jaws. Then, to Ethan's astonishment, the lion let out a low rumble, not a growl, but something akin to a sigh. The lion turned and began to walk deeper into the forest. Ethan, his fear giving way to a strange sense of purpose, followed. The forest floor was surprisingly clear beneath the dense canopy, as if an unseen hand had cleared the way. The air, thick with tension only moments before, now seemed to pulse with an unexpected warmth. They walked in silence, the only sound the soft padding of the lion's paws and the rustle of leaves beneath Ethan's boots. The lion led Ethan deeper and deeper into the Blackwood. The trees grew taller, their branches intertwining overhead to block out the sun. The air grew cooler, and a strange mist began to rise from the forest floor, swirling around their feet. Ethan felt a sense of unreality, as if he had stepped into a forgotten dream. He pushed aside a curtain of moss-covered vines and gasped. In the center of a small clearing stood an ancient altar. It was made of rough-hewn stone, covered in intricate carvings that seemed to writhe and shift in the flickering light. The air hummed with power, a palpable energy that sent shivers down Ethan's spine. The lion carefully placed the child on the surface of the altar, its massive head bowed low, almost in reverence. Ethan felt a surge of hope. Could this place, this altar, hold the key to saving the child? As soon as the child was placed on the altar, the forest seemed to hold its breath. The rustling leaves stilled, the chirping of birds ceased, even the wind seemed to die down. An eerie silence descended upon the clearing. Then a ray of sunlight pierced through the dense canopy, bathing the altar in an ethereal glow. The ancient carvings on the stone seemed to come alive, pulsing with a soft inner light. The light intensified, enveloping the child completely. Ethan, his heart pounding in his chest, held his breath. He watched in awe as the boy's pale skin took on a healthy flush, his chest rising and falling with each breath. The lion let out a low rumble, a sound filled with relief and gratitude. The light slowly faded, leaving the child sleeping peacefully on the altar, the forest's silent witness to the magic it had just beheld. The silence in the clearing was broken only by the sound of the child's soft, even breaths. The lion nudged the boy gently with its nose as if to reassure itself of his well-being. Then it turned its amber eyes to Ethan. For a long moment, their gazes locked, and Ethan felt a strange connection to the creature, a shared understanding that transcended words. The lion dipped its head once, a slow, deliberate movement that seemed to convey a silent gratitude. Then, with a final glance at the sleeping child, it turned and melted into the shadows of the forest. Ethan watched it go, a strange mix of awe and sadness washing over him. He was alone, yet he no longer felt fear. He felt changed, marked by his encounter with the majestic creature and the magic he had witnessed. Ethan knelt beside the sleeping child, feeling a responsibility to see him safely home. The boy stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He looked around, confused, before his gaze settled on Ethan. "Where am I?" he whispered, his voice small and uncertain. "You're safe," Ethan reassured him. "I'm going to take you home." Ethan carefully lifted the boy into his arms. He felt surprisingly light, as if a weight had been lifted from his small frame. As he made his way back through the forest, the setting sun cast long shadows that danced around them. Every rustle of leaves, every snapping twig seemed amplified, yet the fear was gone, replaced by a strange sense of peace. He emerged from the forest edge, the lights of Ravenshollow twinkling in the distance. The townsfolk of Ravenshollow were astonished to see Ethan emerge from the blackwood, a child cradled in his arms. They crowded around him, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Whispers of "the Blackwood," "a child," "a lion," rippled through the crowd. Ethan recounted his tale, his voice trembling slightly at the memory of the encounter. Some dismissed his story as a figment of his imagination, a boy's wild tale spun from spending too much time alone in the woods. Others listened with wide eyes, their faces pale with a mixture of fear and wonder. They remembered the old tales, the whispers of ancient magic that clung to the Blackwood. As Ethan finished his story, a hush fell over the crowd. The forest seemed to press closer, listening to the whispers of its secrets being shared beneath the darkening sky. The child was reunited with his frantic parents, their faces etched with relief as they embraced him tightly. Ethan watched them go, a sense of satisfaction washing over him. He had faced his fear, ventured into the unknown, and emerged forever changed. The Blackwood no longer seemed so menacing, so forbidding. He knew now that it held secrets, some beautiful and magical, others perhaps dark and dangerous, but he had glimpsed a world beyond the ordinary, a world where lions could be guardians and ancient altars held the power of healing. He had found his own courage in the heart of the Blackwood, and in doing so, he discovered a connection to the natural world that ran deeper than he could have ever imagined. From that day forward, Ethan carried the memory of the lion, the child, and the ancient altar within him. It was a reminder that magic lived in the most unexpected places, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look.